Hey everyone, welcome to Tint Wisdom number 82. Today I'm joined with Rob Ruska from Eastman Chemical Company. Rob, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So, I think a great place to.
Pleasure.
Oh, I'm sorry, say again? I,
Oh, it's my pleasure. Sorry, I'm adjusting
oh,
my
no,
mic.
no, I think we might be running into a little bit of internet issue. I'm not sure how it's going to stream, but let's give it a shot. So,
Okay.
why don't we start off with what do you do for Eastman Chemical Company?
So it's quite a bit actually now it seems, but I was hired just about a little over a year ago, and to basically be kind of like a tech services trainer for window tinting and paint protection film, and
Okay.
support for some pro shops and dealerships and stuff like that. So back in June is when I started, and it's funny because I was hired to do this job for about 2 months, and then they pulled me from that project, or pulled me from that job to do a project, and then I've been pretty much on it since uh, end of August, early September, and the project is basically designing new patterns for window film, mostly paint protection and some window film stuff. There's some other guys that do that, but just basically revamping everything because there's you know for years it's always been kind of like a battle of like who's got the best and best and of what films and softwares that they have. So we needed to fix that, and that's there's a big team about 20 to 30 people on just this project to make sure
Wow.
that we're on the right path.
Wow, that's incredible, and that's because you do have the rollout of the core cut system rolling out. It's not out yet, or is it?
It's an alpha stage right now, and there's some people testing it out right now. Um, and with all the stuff that's going on, we were certainly trying to get it out sooner. But with between that and some other things that we want to make sure that when it comes out and it's launched, it's what people expect and want to see. With you know, I don't care who you are. I've been doing this a long time, and all shops and all installers, we're all prima donna divas. So we all fear change,
Hmm.
and we want to make sure that the change is in the right direction.
Sure,
So
because you get that kind of one impression, and that impression then kind of
yes,
spreads throughout the industry, and so on. So there's no question about how important something like the project you're working on is, and obviously there's an immense amount of resources behind it. I mean, you see all the old timers even just kind of one by one conceding to getting a plotter and finding more reasons to have a plotter and using it. And it's obviously the way of the future and even the present. Um, you have 30 people on that project, 30 plus people on that project. I think people maybe underestimate what really goes into creating patterns. Is there anything that you can share like that, that kind of gives maybe more of an understanding?
sure. I mean, certainly some stuff. You know, everyone thinks it's just real simple and easy just to throw some stuff into a program, but right now, not only are we doing that into the new core software, but we're also loading it into our previous stuff, like True Cut and Precision Cut 5. So basically, that's like a little taste test of what is to come because the moving parts inside core, we're still dialing in to make sure it's right. But the patterns that are in there are good to go. And then we're sharing those. Um, we were starting to load those patterns into the older software. So that way the weight isn't quite the weight for just the core, but we're also using getting feedback of our new pattern standards with window film and paint protection film.
Got it.
So, but with the amount of people, you know, with the different kind of cars, certain things I didn't even really think about until I was on this project, like European cars, they look the same, but they're slightly different. There's certain regulations for DOT, like marker lights and stuff like that. So a lot of things that you don't really think about, and in some other pattern makers that do this, they might actually have bought software to make patterns and then sell it to other manufacturers, but that guy might have made that pattern in England and sold it to somewhere here, and it's not fitting. So then it's a whole issue. So now we're basically when I say 30 people, there's way more than that. But as far as like the hands-on, like design team, it's about 30 people or so. And it's pretty much around the world. So right now we have teams in UK, a bunch in US, Germany, and stuff like that. So, and even in China. So, but we're certainly proud. I'm happy to be, because I was the diva for years about complaining about all these patterns that didn't fit. And now that I have a voice and actually can help, it's pretty awesome to be part of that on this side of the industry now.
So are there any factors that that can come up with a pattern, whether it be tint or PPF, that causes a variation for maybe two shops on different sides of the country? So is it possible that a pattern could be quote unquote perfect, but maybe temperature differences or installation technique leads one person to think it's a great pattern and one person to think it's a terrible pattern?
Certainly. The window tint, it's kind of cut and dry. It's either a really good pattern or it's not. I will say that the difference is in the manufacture of the glass in the car. For instance, like the Tesla 3, mostly Teslas, really. You can have 3 Teslas sitting in your parking lot ready to tint, and you cut the same tint off of that same software, and the edge will be different. It's because the glass manufacturer for Tesla and some other manufacturers, we noticed that, we can't make changes all the time. If we get a complaint or concern or something, we'll verify if it's either good or bad. If it's bad, we'll fix it. But if we were doing that with Tesla, we'd be chasing our tails all day. And some other ones, it just depends on, just like anything, a master roll of film could be different than, even though it's the same 35%, you might get one batch that's bad or something like that. But with glass, it's the same deal. So we're kind of fighting that. But on paint protection, what we're doing with Core is like verifying what we have and also improving our pattern standard going forward. So, and what we're doing is, when we're verifying, is we're physically putting the pattern on the car that was already designed, and if it needs tweaking or fixing, we're doing that. And so if someone in Canada in January complains that it doesn't fit, it's probably because it's 30 degrees below zero. You need to kind of adjust some, climate temperatures in your shop, because it fit in Dallas, Texas when we did it. So, and when we say we verified it, it's not just a quick slap it on, make sure more touch it, and so it's definitely gained on our side for sure, because the demand for these patterns across the board, 3M, XPEL, all these, the customers with social media these days, the customers are the ones that are like really seeing the difference for sure, and they want to make sure that his best buddy got his car done at this shop, and he might not go to the same one. Well, why does mine look different? We all need to make sure we're all on the same platform.
And with this new software, with Core, I feel like it's likely to improve, like ongoing improvements and notes and installation tips and so on. So like you're able to maybe pass that knowledge along because of that platform enabling that. Is that is that both ways?
There are some things that are kind of already out there as far as like reviews of feedback of that pattern, for instance, like on a bumper. It fits good, but it's an effort to get there. So you can make leave feedback, and other installers can see it. You don't have to do that, but and then like a star rating, just like anything else. But basically, and we always the plan is to just basically keep up on that to make sure that if there's anything that is concerning, that there's a lot of negative feedback or positive, we just want to see why. We'll go back to the drawing book and see what's up, and verify verified, when we published it out in the software, we had a complaint, and we looked at it, verified it again, and we didn't know it was. It's basically what they were using. It was just a really aggressive slip and tack solution, and they just were they're kind of green. So, and that's the other thing is we just got to make sure that, you know, their experience level is, you know, kind of up to par with the industry standards as a whole, not just us. So
Absolutely game changing. You know, like the amount of resources it takes to develop something like that because of all the variations in vehicles and it has to be so precise and so on. Obviously, you know how big of a task that is, and I think that's where there's only a handful of companies that are qualified to take something like that on. It's just not something that you can do at a 20% or 30% scale.
And I think, you know, with Eastman, you know, I think since SEMA and the launch of Core, that it's no secret how much they've also, the resources and the amount of time, effort, and money they've invested in this, and basically they're not playing around. So when I was hired, within the first 48 hours, I kind of found out about this, and I was going to be part of it, and I was humbled just because I was like, it's not really what I was hired or signed on to do, but I was even more excited about it just because they're involving me. But when I saw this and then some other things, I was like, everyone thinks that, you know, behind the scenes that, you know, there's so many like things that people make. If you make a call, a complaint, a concern, that they might be going to deaf ears or something like that, and they're just sitting idle. That is not the case. There's always so many people behind the scenes working to improve something or to launch something new. And in this case, it was the software, and I was completely blown away with what I was seeing, and I'm excited for it to get it out there finally. And honestly, I'm really not sure when that will be on. Hopefully sooner than later. It's just everything is just a mess right now with the world. But and I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and I was almost starting to sound like a cheesy salesman, where I was saying, you know, this is like nothing you've seen before, and it really is. But the only reason why I say it like that is it's not what I mean. Like it's nothing you've seen before, because most other softwares, you know, I've used a lot of them, DAP, you know, TrueCut, all the computer cut stuff. They're all kind of like, you know, not homegrown. They're out of like another sign software, and it's kind of thrown in there in certain ways. This one was homegrown, home built, in house to window film and paint protection, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's built just for that. It's not we're not like, you know, hybrid thing or anything like that.
That makes a big difference in usability, you know, and just how the flow, being able to, like, you know, scan a VIN in and it to populate the correct pattern and then to be cutting it so quickly and so on. Like that's you know, that's seamless. That's the difference between maybe doing it right or doing it and redoing it, or doing it right or spending 5 minutes scrolling and kind of clicking out and this and that, you know. So it really is. I'm excited to see it roll out.
Yeah, and because you know, coming from an installer background, you know, the usability is what I'm trying to like make sure that we're all on the same page. Is because I'm in a shop, I'm looking at the car I need to work on. The last thing I want to do is be sitting in front of the computer screen, clicking parts, you know, editing or whatever have you. I want to click, cut, install, and make some money.
Yep.
And I know that's what everybody's wanting to do. So that's where the software is kind of like the keep it simple, stupid mentality is just, you know, like I never thought I would be on this side for sure. I was always an installer for 25 years or so, and I'm not the best around computers, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that, like, I would just turn it on, open up the software, and find the car, and that was about as my background with computers is. But that's why I wanted to make sure that we kind of make sure we keep it streamlined and simple.
For 5 or 10 minutes, when you have a couple customers waiting for you on Tint, can feel like an eternity. And like you just at some
Yeah.
point, if a 10 minutes goes by wasted, you just go forget it. And then when do you come
Mhm.
back to it? You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like, I mean, 5 or 10 years ago, it's like we wouldn't even be having this discussion. I would have never thought, because everyone was so against plotters and software. Everyone
right.
was, I'm a hand cutter, software plotters are terrible. But now it's like, well, it's like 100. It turned around, because now it's like
Hmm. The
we use
technology caught
plotters, we
up.
use software because we don't want to put a blade on your car.
Yep.
Yep, and it's like people like to hear that, and then we've got the baddest plotter, we have the baddest software.
Yeah.
It's funny
Yep.
how things change quickly.
It's just a
Uh,
matter of
just
technology catching up for it, I think, because um,
hmm,
it's just a matter of it became good enough to where it wasn't just the first adopters, and it becomes more widely known, and here we are, and it's definitely the way of the future. It's the way
hmm,
of the future. It's not a matter of if a bunch of hand cutters go buy plotters. It's a matter of all the businesses that are going to pop up doing tint when you can just plot it so
yep,
easily. That's what's going to force that.
yep,
Whether hand
yeah,
cutters like it or not.
yeah, and I like. There's videos I've posted in years past on a bunch of groups that, just to for all the haters of the plotter, and like the benefits of it. Like, I was showing, there was a guy that I worked with, for instance, he was over, and didn't he wasn't a car guy at all. He was working here, and uh, he had maybe 5 or 6 months experience. And I did an experiment of me hand cutting, and he didn't know how to hand cut, so all he had to do was plot the windows, heat shrink, install. He did it in about 45 minutes or so, and he had 6 months experience, if that. And that's pretty good for someone that is a good installer with the bare minimum skills, I guess, not a full tinter. And in my time, I was huffing, but I did it like in around 25 minutes, hand cut, the same car and everything. And that was my thing, is like, you can train someone to hand cut. Absolutely, I've done it,
Right.
but it takes a year or two to get
Right.
them to where they're comfortable at maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right.
And that was like one of my demonstrations I did, was like, don't hate it, it's
Right.
coming.
Well, and that's the
you know
thing. If you ask any tint shop, maybe not tinter, but tint shop, and you say, "What's your biggest problem?" They're going to say finding tinters. That's everybody's biggest
Yep,
problem. So
yep,
if the problem can be solved by buying a plotter and a small training period, then that's why. I mean, that's another reason why it's going to be so successful, or like it is already taking over the market and
yeah,
going to continue.
yeah. I think even in that same video, I like kind of did a kind of a review of whatever happened that day. And I said, the best thing about this video, and I pointed to the plotter. I said, that employee right there,
Yeah.
he doesn't bitch, he doesn't complain, he is there every day. He might,
Hmm.
need a blade every once in a while, but he's consistent. So, and he's cheap. Well, upfront cost, yes, but not a full blown salary.
It's a tool, right? It's a tool, and it's not. It's a one-time
Yeah,
cost essentially.
yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep, for
one
sure.
one-time investment. I mean, there's so many opportunities too, like beyond just plotting. But like, if you're doing window tint, you're going to need to plot some letters eventually, and maybe cut some frosts, and
Hmm.
maybe plot some small panes and some reveals. Like a plotter is just the right investment, regardless of how much or how little or what type of window film you're touching.
For sure, for sure.
So you mentioned you've been working for Eastman for about 1 year, but you've been in the industry for about 25. Can you take us back about 24, 25 years ago to the very beginning?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story. So I think I must have been about 13 years old when I actually first touched window tint. Uh, and what it was I think my friend, his brother got tint. We tried it, and of course, miserable and terrible experience. But from 5 feet away, maybe 10, it started. I was like, okay, it looks pretty decent, and I liked the simplicity of how you can change the look of a car with window tint. So my dad actually, it was his Mustang, his Fox body Mustang, which I actually have still to this day. It was the first car I actually tinted, and he worked for Eastman Kodak up in upstate New York. So that's where I grew up. And so the fact that I'm working for Eastman now, it's pretty crazy. So, but I started there, and I just kept at it because you could buy a tint at the parts store for $30, and I kept doing it. When I turned 16, I got my first job at a stereo shop, because back in the 90s, if you worked at a stereo shop, of course they had tint, and then that was like my dream, like put subs in an amp, and that was in upstate New York. So then I started getting a pretty decent reputation up there, to where some other shops kind of heard about me. So I would kind of like play the field of like who's gonna pay me more or whatever, because I was young, I didn't have any bills or anything like that. It was just the grass might not be greener on the other side, but the money was, at least. But so I ended up kind of doing like a rotation between 3 or 4 shops up there, and every other year it seemed like. But I also went to school for auto mechanics. So when I worked with a guy there, he said he was always wanting to be in NASCAR, always wanted to be in NASCAR. And I lived in a small town in New York, and they were like, if you can get out, you can get out. Awesome. But he always kept saying this, and it was like, yeah, right. Well, he moved down here and ended up working for NASCAR right off the bat. And he was a tire changer, and I was a huge race fan. And the company that that does the tear-offs down here, Pro Tint, in Kannapolis, North Carolina, they were at the race shop, and they saw my buddy's car, and at the time he had flames that I did in the tint and all that stuff, and that was when it was cool. Which is crazy to think that, but they saw it, and they started talking, who did it, blah blah blah. Next thing, out of the blue, I got a phone call, and from the owner of Pro Tint, and he kind of talked about an opportunity. So I came down for a few days, and gave it a shot, see what they had. He gave me an offer that I was like, you know what, I might stay in New York, because it wasn't really that good. But a couple weeks later, he called me and made me a better offer, and made me an offer to where he'd help pay me to come down and all that stuff. So I ended up coming down, and I came from a pretty decent, successful shop up in upstate New York. So he kind of wanted me to bring some of that knowledge to that store, because that company, it's a pretty large company in Charlotte, to where they do a ton of flat glass, they do a ton of racing and the nose guard stuff on the race cars and tear-offs. But their automotive at the time wasn't really that booming, and so I was trying to get it going, and I don't know if it was the Yankee in me or what. It just didn't work out. And I ended up leaving, but I also at the same time was like, what do I do now? And do I keep doing what I've been doing pretty much all my life at this point? I was maybe 25 years old, 26, and I ended up I tried to get a job at doing installing security in houses. And then this is where it gets interesting, because I was driving back from a friend's house, and this van drove by me, and it said window tinting, and I couldn't see the logo right away. And I was like, oh, what's that? Because I was new to Charlotte, so I didn't really know a bunch of shops other than the one I just worked at. So I sped up, and I see Sunstoppers. And I was like, that looks like a pretty clean van. And who was driving it was Mike Burke, which was one guy that you interviewed the last couple of weeks or whatever. So I ended up, and now this is before all smartphone stuff. And so I didn't have internet. I was broke. I didn't have a job. I ended up going to the library to like rent some time on the internet or something. And I emailed Mike, and he responded to me pretty quickly within a couple days. And I ended up going down there to work with him at a dealership, and kind of feeling each other out and stuff like that. So he's like, why don't you come in this Saturday to my shop and we'll work together and see what's up.
Mhm.
So, and that's where it kind of started down here and got a big footprint here in North Carolina. So within a couple of weeks, he ended up saying, "Hey, there's a shop up near you that I have ties to that because when it is Lightning Mike days before Sunstoppers, there was a shop that was he had his hands in a long time ago, but it was going under. And he's like, "You have an opportunity. Do you want it?" I'm like, sure." So I within a month we opened up a second location at Sunstoppers. So and then from there I was with Mike and Sunstoppers for almost 15 years
Oh, wow.
until about a year ago. So you know, it was we had a great time together. You know, it was crazy because I had we broke records. We're in the Guinness Book World Records, and you know, we opened up a lot of shops together. I mean, not necessarily me and him, but to see that whole thing grow was pretty awesome to see, and to be a little part of it was nice because he's not like a bunch of other shop owners or managers that just come in a couple hours and they leave. And sometimes I've worked for people that don't even know how to tint windows, and he had no fear, and the passion that he has, that's what drew me to him. But you know, then we started getting busier, and I think when we were getting busier, I was basically digging my own grave because I'm a workaholic and I did not know how to say no to anything.
Yeah.
And I was burning myself out. So I put some feelers out, you know, just to be like, this is all I know how to do. I love it, but the retail side of it, I just was burnt out. If I could just put headphones on and a squeegee in my hand,
Yeah.
and just get keys, I would be fine.
Right.
But
there's so much more than
feelers
that.
out. Oh yeah, and I got burnt out, and you know, I had an opportunity, or I had a phone call last Easter, a little over a year ago, from Eric at Eastman, and he just said, "Hey, a little birdie told me that you might be looking for some different opportunities or a different path." I'm like, wow, yeah. So, and it happened real fast, and I could not pass up this opportunity because if I did, I didn't know if it would exist in a year or two, because I feel like I might have had more time to like do more installs and still stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know if that door was going to be shut when I was ready to really call it quits. And so I just kind of, unfortunately, had to tell Mike the bad news. But you know, things happen, and you know, but you know, I'm hoping we stay in contact once in a while. But he kind of mentioned it a couple weeks ago because I did watch his. You know, it was a bad breakup. I mean, it was fine, but then of course, you know, 2 stories of all that stuff. But like, I brought that story up with Mike is because I do respect him, and for his passion in the industry, because of what he's doing right now is crazy. I know I couldn't do it. That's why I kind of got out of it, because I just got burnt out, and he's 100% full throttle about it all the time. So, and that's why with this Eastman deal, it was a perfect fit for me. You know, a little less stress, actually a lot less stress, and a good team, a good culture. You know, I couldn't be happy. And the fact that I'm kind of with the same company that my dad used to work for 30 plus years at Kodak, it's come full circle. It's pretty awesome to be part of.
Man, as like the topic of burnout, I just feel like is one that's just gonna be more and more prevalent in the next like coming years, because I feel like, at least from my perspective, if right now, like somebody can open a tin shop, do a do a great job at marketing, and because of how much consumer awareness there is, you can find yourself overwhelmed with work. There's a lot of people looking to get their homes tinted. There's a lot of PPF and cars getting tinted. There's a lot of new cars getting bought. Cars get bought now every 2, 3, 4 years. You know, it's not a 10-year ordeal. So what I'm saying is, I think more and more shop owners and tinters are going to find themselves in like that good problem to have, which is so freaking busy, but so exhausted and don't know where to turn. And I think
Yeah.
that's coming in 5 years, 10 years, because I don't think you feel that in 6 months or a year. I think it accumulates. At first, you feel like Superman, but eventually your battery's just low.
Yeah. And that's really what it was. And so we were cruising on cruise control for a while, and we were customers with Eastman at the time with Suntech, and we had many stores, and Expo came around, and we ended up making the decision to switch, and that switch business wise was good because everybody got busier, and in certain markets with paint protection and stuff like that, and how they market. And that's what Mike was really wanting to do with marketing and stuff like that. But the problem is it came with a lot of business where, again, I did not know how to say no. And I used to do a lot of preload stuff for dealerships. And I'm 40 years old now, and I'm not getting any younger. I couldn't sit in a stool or getting out of back seats all the day. So, I think the stress or the stress on your body, I think, is a little less now with the plotter and stuff. It makes it a lot easier, I think. And because I have like my, I can't, I can hardly make a 3 with my right hand because I was holding a squeegee or some sort of blade. I got like,
Mm-hmm.
A janky hand now, but for years of holding certain tools, but burnout, I see it all the time. And one of the things was with this past 4 or 5 months of this pandemic thing, I never thought, like, when this happened, I was like, man, I'm thankful that I'm in a position where I'm getting a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about cars coming in the door because everyone's worried about toilet paper. Why would anyone really think about, I really need to get my windows tinted right now, or I need paint protection right now? But all my friends that I know in the industry and all the shops, and even on our side that we see customers, orders of film going out, I was completely shocked about how busy all these shops were all around the country, all around the world. And I was like, wow, I would have lost a bet on that deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was awesome to see. But at the same time,
Yeah.
everyone's joking around. They're like, it's like we're so busy. People probably think we have the vaccine for it in our tint because it's people are just knocking on the door.
So if you were running a shop right now and using your experience looking backwards, like what is like one or two of the main things that you would want to put in place or like do differently or like want to have a solution for that was like a big bottleneck that you felt was kind of the you know
So I take the store that I ran for 15 years, almost 15 years, for example. Everyone's different, even within the Sunstoppers organization. Each store has different demographics
Mhm.
of all their clients, and where my location was like the kind of the ritzy, pompousy, higher end cars and the customers and stuff. So, and we didn't get volume, like consistent volume. So it'd be peaks and highs and lows. But the biggest thing is I wish I had was consistent, was like a counter person to just basically
Yep.
handle all that.
Yep.
The problem I had is that I worked by myself for about 6 years. So I developed the relationship with all these customers.
Right.
So they were like, later on down the road when I started to get help,
Right.
they were like, hey, is Rob there? And I'm busy. I'm like, I hired this guy. He can certainly help you out,
Mhm.
but I can't stop it. Of course, they only want to deal with me,
Yeah.
whatever. And that's the problem. But like, I just saw someone post something on one of the groups either yesterday or something about working on particular cars. I can't remember what it was, but anyways, and I was reading the comments and it was like, you just need help. just if you can get a helping hand
Yep.
and relieve the stress, and it's easier said than done. Obviously, I've tried it, and you win some, you lose some, and the biggest thing was if someone could just answer phones,
Mm-hmm.
do paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
and if I could just put headphones on and squeeze you, I'd be good to go.
Yeah.
But it's that's not the case, and it's so hard, like because you budget certain times, and then next thing you know, we're looking at the clock, and you're like, all right, it's 5 o'clock, and I'm still got quite a bit to do.
Right.
And but hiring just a helping hand is just the best thing ever. Like I
Yep.
had a couple people where they were not necessarily the best employees, but they were a human being there. You know what I mean? Like a physical
Right.
being. Like if I had to go somewhere, someone was there, or whatever. They were just basically just there to help. So, but
So
yeah,
Joshua Reeves asked in the comments, best advice for a one-man shop. Would that just be making sure you get help and as soon as possible?
um, I don't think so. Like because it's scary because you don't want to commit to someone and there might not be work there. You know what I mean? So I was doing 4 or 5 cars a day on average when I first opened up that one store, and then it got busier. But then if I were to, you know, if you're at least doing 5 cars a day, you could probably do it solo. But if you're wanting to do more, and then if you see the wave coming, then of course, then I'd
But
say,
I mean, that's essentially what it is like if you're what's your plan? Is your plan to I'm going to do 4 cars a day or 5 cars a day and that's going to be forever and that's what I'm going to do? Then like yeah, you definitely like if you don't want to hire somebody, that's a good idea. Don't hire anybody. But if you're going to say, "Hey, I want to make as much money as possible in a day," then you know you're going to make more money if you pay somebody to do some part of the job that's taking up your time so you can do the more valuable job, which is tinting. However, like you said, that's if you have the work coming in.
yeah, yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like some shops that I've seen are more like a boutique style, and all they do, and that's the other thing is like years ago when it was a stereo shop and they did tinting and accessories and stuff. I never thought 15 years from then, there's shops that all over the world right now, that's all they do is stick film,
Mm-hmm.
PPF and tint, which is crazy. But there's still those guys that are doing that, but they're like by appointment only. Like that's it. They'll lock the door
Right.
all day until that appointment shows up, and they'll work on a couple of cars a day, and they're happy with that.
Mm.
And that's how they roll. There's a
Right.
place out in Arizona I was at this past year, and they're booked solid for like a month or two, and their door is locked all the time, and it's because they know where to go,
Mm.
and if there's a secret knock on the door, or who knows, whatever. But they
Right.
figured it out where they get no good work there.
Right. Right. It's about knowing, like you said, knowing what type of business you want to run and what you envision for yourself. And also, I think what's important, if anybody can actually catch themselves, if this is a warning, but basically, don't take yourself to 130%. So, like, if you're, not so busy, maybe you don't hire anybody. But as you get to that 80%, 90% capacity, you have to use that little bit of time you have to actually plan. Because if you stretch yourself to 130% capacity, eventually then you don't have any time and that's where you run into that issue. So I think it's that transition from like I'm busy to like I'm insane.
And and one of the other things is I just thought of is like
Hmm.
that would help is if your app was around 15 years ago, like the
Well,
like
it
the
was around
the
6 years ago, but
I
I was
mean, man, oh man, like it's just
listen.
that little reminder or to confirm or to call when it's ready. I mean, that
Hmm.
those little things that add up. It's
Save so
like,
much time, save
mm,
problems, make it easy, and
yep,
so on. I do training demos with Tint Wiz, like where we train staff or whatever it is. And like even, I was working with a shop today. They have two front desk people and like they are overwhelmed. They have calls coming in constantly, they have emails coming in constantly, and then they have customers walking in the door that they have to attend to. So, that sort of thing adds up quickly, especially if you're going to try and do like flat glass and cars. Basically, the second your phone starts ringing a lot, you're in trouble if it's just you.
Yeah, yeah, because I would let it ring, go to voicemail, and all right, I'll look at it and I'll call it later. And
That's rough though,
it
because you're setting
it
yourself up
might,
for homework at the end of the day. And then you're probably, when you call those people, you're going to get a lot of people that you don't get in touch with or that kind of got it done. So now you're calling people and getting a lower success rate. So you're talking on the
yep,
phone anyway, but now you got to, you know what I mean? Like it's a
you're
trickle down
backtracking.
effect.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, it's one of those things where like the other thing is like to find the right guy or girl to work a front counter is really important because
Yep.
I've had people answer the phones for me and it's like blood curdling where I'm like,
Yes. You have to
because
train them.
they just,
You
yeah,
you have to
and
give
that's the
somebody
thing
a
then.
script. You have to give them rebuttals. You have to give them the answer to the common questions they're going to get. If you don't tell them
Yeah,
word for word how to say it, you're going to be chasing your tail, trying to correct everything that comes out of their mouth.
yeah, and I mean, and they just gotta have somewhat basic knowledge of cars, and that's you know, if someone called for a Corvette, then the person that you hired, oh, is it a two-door or a four-door? That's
Yep.
probably not good for the person to hear on the other end.
No.
So, and
No.
that was the biggest thing is like, because then you got to stop and train them,
So
so that's a whole thing.
throwing out another tip there just to eliminate, because I know that is a common thing. Somebody, you're going to hire somebody, they're going to get a call, and they're going to have to price it. So making pricing as easy as possible and is important. And in my opinion, I think you have more to gain than to lose by simplifying that. So by calling a car, by calling an SUV an SUV, and that's it. Two front doors are two front doors. The exceptions are Teslas.
Yeah,
Done.
yeah,
And you're
yeah.
not overwhelming somebody and they're like, hey, I have a 1987 Outback so and so, and they're like, let me see what that is.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
who
yeah.
cares? Is
Yep.
it a car or an SUV?
Mm-hmm.
And it averages out, I think, at the end. I
Yep,
hope.
for sure.
I think. No, it does. It really does. You have to find ways to simplify that, because I think one of the main things with business owners looking to hire is they're going to say, well, everybody wants to talk to me. I know, like, you have to come to me for pricing. You have to come to me with questions. And at the end of the day, if you can simplify that and provide, those resources for the person you're hiring, you have a much higher success rate or chances for
Mm-hmm.
success at them working out than if you rely on somebody to also be a self learner.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
for sure, for sure.
So, do you think you would ever own a tint shop?
Uh, a lot of people have asked me that all along. Like, why don't you go out on your own? Out on your own. The thing is, I was as close to that with Mike and Sunstoppers at that Lake Norman store
Mm-hmm.
as I want to be. Uh, I had fun, and there's uh, things that I do miss as far as like the relationships with customers that I see on a daily basis now. I don't anymore, but I see some out in the store or whatever. But I don't think I could go back to a shop. I might be if there was a situation similar to what I was doing, maybe, but it would have to be the right thing. But I think right now, how the industry is and the demand and the stress, I almost kind of don't want to go backwards because uh, certainly you could be very successful with a shop if you do it right. And the biggest fear I had was with Eastman getting this job was I was wearing shorts and t-shirts for 15, 20 plus years to work.
Mm-hmm.
And the corporate world was my biggest fear. And the performance films division of Eastman, there's over 1,000 people,
Wow.
and it's not it's not corporate. Like, I mean, it is, but it's like a different sort of corporate. And the the things I appreciate are, because I have a family of two boys, a wife, and like the benefits that come with kind of like the corporate world is that I've never had before. And that kind of outweighs certain things. I know there's very successful tint shops around the world that, or film, stereo shops as well, that
Hmm.
can offer that. But I never had that opportunity. So I'm, like I said, I'm 40 years old. I can't be an installer all my life. And I'm in the great spot to where I can still get my hands on it. And I love training. I love this new world of designing stuff. It's a new chapter. So
Yeah.
I don't think I could.
Yeah, I like that answer because it's like it's just an evolution, and you're in a position where you can now, consumer like business to consumer is nice. You see somebody, you make their day, they're really happy. You give them something that like you solve their problem and so on. That's a really great interaction. But there's also a nice interaction when you're dealing with business to business within the window film community because it's an ongoing relationship. Everybody's in that
Yep.
community, and you continue to interact with those people more than just once every 3 or 4 years as a customer business. So that's a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best things, like now, not so much recent since we've been doing a lot of the design stuff, but when I was hired, I did some trainings with some people, and the success rate with how we do it with training and advanced training and stuff like that is very good. I would have never thought in a million years I could get anyone to tint in the amount of time we can.
Wow.
I was doing a training up in Philadelphia, and there was a kid there. I think he was in his 20s, early 20s, and I saw him and me. Like, he was eager. He was watching YouTube videos, which I was self-taught. I didn't have all the help. I've learned things along the way from other people and tried different things, but I'd never had a formal training. But he was ready for me to get there, and it was a stereo shop there, and we kind of do this regimen of like what we're supposed to do on day one, day two, etc.
Hmm.
And this guy was so far ahead of where I thought he would be. And on day two of tinting, he was like, "Can I tint this car?" And it was a new 3 Series BMW. And I'm like, "Well, I mean, we're not supposed to right now, but I don't want you going backwards. Everything you've learned so far." He's like, "I think I got it." I'm like, "All right, well, go at it." He tinted that car, and every single window was good to go. And he had it done in under 2 hours on his second day. And to this day, like just the other day, he texted me and thanking me for like giving him just that little extra pep in his step to be able to be a really good window tinter. And I'm like, this industry, Mike even mentioned it, is a lot of people don't get the respect. If you say you're a window tinter, people are like, whatever, what are you? And it's such an under the radar skilled trade where you can make a lot of money.
Hmm.
And I was making very good money and very happy and made a very good career and lifestyle out of it. And I was telling these trainees that I was showing around, and some of them weren't like really paying attention or whatever, and they were just like, some of them were on their phone, and I'm like snapping my, "Hey," I'm like, "Are you going? Do you want to learn or no? Like, because if
Yeah.
not, I'll find someone else." And I tell them, you don't think this is a lucrative business, but it really is. And if you do it right, play your cards right, you can make a very good living and very good lifestyle. Like, there's certain things that I've been able to do in my life that I never thought I would be able to, just because I slung window film on some windows.
Like going to the
And
Gold Rush Rally and having your own race car. We should talk about that too.
yes, exactly. Like, I mean, I never thought being friends with race car drivers and given the opportunity to drive $1 million cars across the country at triple digit speeds. I I'm living my life. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like I have to pinch myself. There's a GoPro. It's funny you brought that up. There's a GoPro video that I have that I don't think I ever showed anyone because it's almost borderline embarrassing because I've shown some people on my phone, but I don't want it out. It was aiming at me while I was driving the Ford GT, and my stint was over. Okay, so pull up and I stop. I turn the car off and I just sat there, my hands on the wheel, and I'm just like, it looked like someone just ran over my puppy. Like all the adrenaline I had for days
Yeah.
driving around supercars, all of a sudden it was over just like that. And I'm just like, and then Kurt comes over and he's like, "How was that?" And he had to pry me out of that car because I just didn't want to get out. And I hope that he had the bug. And fortunate, he did it again last year. We were planning on doing it this year, but it was postponed and it's till September. But I'm still not sure if it's going to happen. And if it does, it's too close to some race stuff that he's probably not going to do it this year. But we had some good tricks up our sleeves this year. But unfortunately, we'll have to wait.
Man, I'm just curious, is that somebody you met through like through window tinting or just through the
Yeah. So going back to my buddy that that got me down here at Eastman Racing,
Mhm.
he worked at Roush Racing when Kurt Busch drove there, and Kurt is a very particular guy that knows what he wants, and he's very, very anal about everything. And somehow I got a phone call, and I started doing some stuff, cars for him, and we just kind of hit it off. He had one of his first cars he did was a Mustang, and I'm a Mustang and a Ford guy. And then I did his houses, and then basically did all that, and it just, been pretty good friends, and I'm very fortunate and blessed that he's a really awesome guy. There's a lot of, people that I wasn't a fan of him when I lived in New York, and then when I met him, I'm like, oh, he's a pretty cool guy. And, he got me onto the project with the Pantera when he was on Gas Monkey Garage, and I was on the show with that, and that was cool. Even though it was kind of edited funky, and I didn't get the exposure a window tinter should get, but it was a fun experience in the fact that he's included me in a lot of things.
Wow.
I'll certainly be grateful for life for him.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It was a pleasure getting
Yeah,
to know you,
it
and
was a
you know,
pleasure.
thank you. So thank you everybody for
Yeah,
watching.
and
And
I'm
go ahead.
hoping.
Sorry, there's a
I
delay.
was gonna say I'm hoping to.
Huh?
Yeah, sorry. I'm hoping to see in January at the conference and everything that hopefully everything goes as planned
Yeah.
down in Orlando. So hopefully to meet some new people and some familiar faces and catch up.
Cool. I hope to see you there, and maybe we could head out to Bithlow and drag race some cars if you're into that.
I'm down.
Every
I'm
Wednesday and
down.
Friday night. So I think the conference is Tuesday to Thursday. So sounds like a Wednesday plan, maybe, or Friday.
I'm taking my car out Friday for a track night. Is this Friday actually? So
Circle track or testing like a drag strip.
Circle. The Charlotte Motor Speedway has it's a little bit of both. It's the oval and the road course, so it's like combined. So it's a little bit of both. Sorry.
Nice, man. Well,
But
enjoy.
but yeah. So I did it. I did it a few weeks ago, and fun.
I saw those pictures on your Facebook page. For anybody wondering, you can see the Mustang and also the Gold Rush Rally, the Ford GT. You have them on your Facebook. So.
Yep. Yep. Oh, and then the one thing about the Mustang is the battle scars from my first attempt tinting that car are still there to this day. The car's been fully restored, but there's definitely some scratches in the glass from dull blades.
On the outside?
So, yeah, and a little bit on the inside. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Man,
but the tint is new.
That's a piece of tint museum like history.
Yep.
So you got to keep that.
I'm keeping it. So
all right,
it was
man.
a pleasure, man.
Thank you so much. Have a great night. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See you. Thanks.